Coming up on Network Africa, Kenyan MP files a petition seeking the removal of Chief Justice David Maraga for his role in President Kenyatta's win in the August 8th general election. Memorial service holds today in Nairobi for 9 students who died in a fire that broke out at their dormitory in Moi Girls High School. And Tanzanian co-joined twins Maria and Consolata Mwakikuti begin special computer classes at the Ruaha Catholic University ahead of the start of term. Welcome to the program. I'm Millicent Umoka. Angola's Constitutional Court has upheld last month's general election result, accusing an opposition party of fraud. According to the courts, there are strong indications of forgery in the documents presented by UNITA, as well as copies of electoral rolls, summary records, and other documents. UNITA was not in court to receive the judgment. Last week, opposition parties filed a complaint in court about alleged irregularities in the vote. The ruling MPLA won with 61.07% of the vote, continuing its record of being the only party to rule the country since independence in 1975. Angola election watchers are wondering what next for the opposition. A Kenyan MP, Ngujiri Wabugu, from the governing Jubilee Party, has filed a petition seeking the removal of Chief Justice David Maraga, accusing him of orchestrating a judicial coup by leading the Supreme Court judges to annul President Uhuru Kenyatta's win in the August 8th election. He told reporters in the capital, Nairobi, that the judiciary is being held captive by NGOs who have been against the presidency of Mr. Kenyatta and that they influenced the court's decision. But the ruling Jubilee Party Secretary General, Raphael Tuju, says the petitioner is a private member and does not represent Uhuru Kenyatta's party. Justice Maraga has been widely praised across the continent for the decision to annul the election, which has been adjudged a good example of judicial independence. Well, staying in Kenya, 2 Kenyan politicians, a ruling party lawmaker, Moses Kuria, and former opposition Senator Johnston Muthama of the National Civil Alliance NASA coalition, have been released over hate speech allegations. They were freed on bail on a 300,000 Kenyan shilling bond on Tuesday at a court in Nairobi. Last week, Kuria gave a public speech calling for a manhunt for Odinga supporters who had greeted the court ruling with jubilation, while Muthama, a former senator for the opposition Wiper Party, allegedly made provocative statements against President Kenyatta. In the meantime, for both candidates, the temperature was raised in public speeches, with Kenyatta telling a delegation that if Odinga was elected president, his party would impeach him within 3 months of assuming power. Well, now on that issue, I'm being joined in the studio by Onyisi Chemeka. He is a legal practitioner. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
All right, so let's, talk about Kenya, where, lately these 2 senior politicians have been released based on hate speech. Talking about hate speech, is this not another regime of restrictions placed on citizens' rights to expression?
Well, it may be, it may not be, because in the first place, the Kenyan Constitution has a provision for hate speech, that if you make a hate speech, you could be punished for that. So at least there is a provision in law, legally speaking, that there could be something defined as hate speech within the Kenyan legal system.
And that's very explicit.
Yes, I think that's section 32, subsection 2C of the Kenyan Constitution, which has to do with free speech. It says that the citizens are entitled to free speech, but not hate speech. So it then went ahead in another legislation to now define what amounts to hate speech and said these are the punishments that you may suffer if you make a hate speech.
So that's the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. I think that's section 13, where it really, talks about what hate speech means.
Yes, it defines what is hate speech and went ahead to say you either fine both 3 million shillings or a fine of 3 years, as the case might be, or both. So clearly, there is no infringement on the law as to the fact that there is a law existing with respect to that particular offense.
So it's interesting that there have been many reports with some people saying that hate speech can be blamed on both candidates or their supporters. How will the courts try such a matter?
Well, it is the person the state reports that has committed a crime or that has deemed to charge for an offense that will be prosecuted for such an offense. So A and B may commit the same, may have deemed to have, assumed to have committed a similar offense, but assuming the state say, okay, the person we are going after is B, then, well, you honestly speaking, sometimes it's difficult to say what should the state do and what should it not do.
Another question also is, with regards to Kenya and elections, essentially, can you avoid hate speech? A lot of the time we get it, even in, I think also past elections in this country, politics just seems to bring that.
No, the problem is we need to maybe then look at the Kenyan society. It's similar to Nigeria in terms that it's a multi-ethnic society. And predominantly the Kikuyus have ruled since independence. And that has also brought its own question that what is the fate of the minorities? So which means the minority must tag along on each election. And if you look at how the elections have run so far since independence, it has been from Jomo Kenyatta to Arap Moi to Y. Kibaki, now to Jomo Kenyatta's son, Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, within that same Kikuyu, there is another group, not within them now, within Kenya, there is another dominant group called the Luo ethnic tribe, where Raila Oginga's father comes from, because, there's a family tradition in terms of politics now. Raila Oginga is the son of Oginga Odinga. So, that kind of, in a sense, it puts pressure. Though there's some arguments among African scholars that look, that that if you have a dominant ethnic group, it becomes like an umbrella, and that it guarantees stability for the smaller ethnic groups within such a national framework. They can cite the example of Indonesia, where you have the Java ethnic group, which is about 99. Though there are many other ethnic groups, but the Java group is about 90%.
But do you agree with that?
Well, the concept of democracy is that the majority wins the vote. So if we do an election and a particular group is able to produce more number of votes to win an election, well, others may then have to live with it, unless you run a system that... But I don't really think there is a problem of ethnicity. That's where the problem lies.
Right.
Because if you run a system that de-emphasizes the creation of social disequilibrium and narrow the gap between the rich and the poor, you may not have some of the problems we're having, particularly in Africa.
So essentially, do you think the run elections coming up in October, what impact do you think it will have in Kenya?
You see, I at least have small knowledge of what they do there. The point is that the Kenyan opposition has a strong tradition. It is not like what you have in Nigeria. They have an opposition that has constantly believed in posing an alternative idea of how Kenya should be governed, from Oginga Odinga to the present, to Raila Odinga. So that sets them apart, that they are able to build national cohesion. They are not strictly relying on the fact that, look, we are from Luo ethnic group. They have members even from Kikuyu group who are disenchanted with the present arrangement. They are posing an alternative view of how Kenya should be governed.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Onyisi Chemeke, for joining us on Network Africa.
All right. Thank you very much.